Good morning, everyone. It's a nice, bright Monday out here at the lake. So I hope wherever you are, you also have a pleasant day to look forward to. This is the fourth lecture, written by Dr. Daisy Raphael to support the modules that you're working with in WGS 102. And this one is titled Indigenous Women's Resistance to Patriarchy. Excuse me. This lecture explains how Indigenous women have resisted Canada's attempts to strip them of their identities. In 1876, the Government of Canada introduced the Indian Act, which consolidated Canada's colonial laws about so-called Indian land and identity. The Indian Act, which is still in effect today, not only collapsed distinct and diverse Indigenous nations into one category, by creating the category of the status Indian, it also institutionalized patriarchy in Indigenous communities. Excuse me. Section 12(1)(b) of the Indian Act stripped an Indigenous woman of her Indian status if she married a man who did not have Indian status. This is a patriarchal understanding of a woman's identity as dependent upon her husband's, and meant that an Indigenous woman lost vital connections to her Indigenous identity and community if she married a non-status man. Women who lost their status could not pass on their status to descendants. Because the reserve system mandated that Indian status is required to live on a reserve, the removal of women's status effectively rendered these Indigenous women and their children landless. Resilient Indigenous women, including Mary Two Acts Early, Yvonne Bedard, Jeanette Corbier-Laval, Senator Sandra Lovelace Nicholas, Lynn Gale, Senator Lillian Dick, and Sharon McIver, challenged the patriarchal provisions of the Indian Act. In 1973, Jeanette Corbier-Laval and Yvonne Bedard, who lost their status when they married non-Indigenous men, argued to the Supreme Court of Canada that the Indian Act discriminated against Indigenous women by stipulating that a status Indian woman would lose their status if she married a non-status man. The Supreme Court of Canada upheld Section 12(1)(b) of the Indian Act at that time, arguing that it was not discriminatory because it treated all status women the same. In 1981, Sandra Lovelace took her case of discrimination and loss of status to the United Nations, which ruled that Canada was in violation of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. In response, the Government of Canada passed Bill C-31 in 1985, repealing Section 12(1)(b) of the Indian Act. Excuse me. Bill C-31 created new problems for Indigenous women and their descendants, stipulating that those with 6(1)(c) status can pass status on to their descendants, while those with 6(2) status cannot. Sharon McIver, whose son would not be able to pass status on to his descendants, mounted a nearly 20-year legal battle to ensure that her grandchildren would have status. As recently as January 2019, the United Nations Human Rights Commission found that the Indian Act continues to discriminate against Indigenous women. In October 2019, the government fully implemented Bill S-3 to remove sexism from the Indian Act and restore status to those whose status had been stripped from them. These Indigenous feminist challenges to settler colonialism as a gendered structure are important because they have drawn national and international attention to the ways Canada has systematically disenfranchised Indigenous women. Further, their cases demonstrate that Indigenous women are a powerful political group with claims to rights and sovereignty, and illustrate the importance of an Indigenous feminist analysis of the relationship between colonialism and patriarchy. So this module takes a look at Indigenous feminisms, and it's a heavy module. There's quite a lot of content in it, but there are a lot of very interesting videos for you to take a look at, including a panel which involves faculty members from the Faculty of Native Studies here at the University of Alberta. For example, Kim Tallbear. And you've encountered Kim Tallbear in other modules in this course. And I encourage you to look deeper into her. She's a very, very interesting scholar. As you can see, my cold is not going away. I apologize for my voice. Just want to say a couple of things about the discussion. So you're starting to participate more in the discussions, and we're really, really glad to see that with really excellent responses, and we can tell that you're thinking deeply about the big ideas and other concepts that you're encountering in the modules. But now I want to encourage you, don't just make one post and leave and never go back to see what others are saying, because the purpose of the discussion is to engage you all the way through the course in discussing these ideas and exploring your understandings and learning about the perspectives and understandings of your peers. So it's meant to be an ongoing engagement with your peers. So please don't just do it once. Go back, take a look, even if you don't post again. Make sure that you see what other people are talking about. And this is a deliberate pedagogical decision to help you build a learning community. Excuse me, I'm just going to cough for a minute. We've also started to get in some of the big challenges and are really enjoying the ones that we've seen so far. So this February 1st, at the end of this week, will be the deadline for that first group of challenges. So I'm going to say it again, and you'll say, yeah, I'm going to do it. But, pay attention. Don't leave all your challenges until the third group of challenges in which you are in a panic and trying to get them done in just a couple of weeks. The challenges go throughout the modules. I think, most of them are really interesting. You might not find most of them very interesting, but it's a really great idea to pace yourself through this. If all of you do all of your challenges in sort of that third group, you're not going to get very good feedback from us. And you're not going to be able to see how well you're doing in the course, because we don't grade the discussions as they go along, for example. So your challenges are really the only way to at least see some numerical assessment in the course. So please, pace yourself, spread them throughout the course. We love to see them. They're creative, and they really give us a great deal of pleasure to see how you're doing with the ideas in this course. So thank you again very much for your participation. Sorry about the confusion on the discussion groups. I haven't set up discussion groups in Canvas before, so it took me an awfully long time to try to figure out how to do it, and I do apologize. Remember that Module 3 discussion is open for an extra week to try to cover that little bit of confusion. So have a great week with this module, and I'll see you again next week.